Breaking news from KION News Channel 546.
And that breaking news tonight is coming out of Santa Cruz County. One person is dead after being hit by a car. According to the CHP, this happened on Highway 1 near Vista Point. The driver stayed on scene and one lane is open at this time. We're going to continue to update you on air and online as we get more information on this crash.
One shooting here, one shooting there, shooting here, shooting there. Like, when is change actually going to happen?
It's a heartbreaking plea tonight from a mass shooting survivor. Caitlin Mouget escaped the El Paso massacre over the weekend. And tonight, the nation still reeling from two mass shootings, that one in Texas, then another one in Dayton, Ohio, only 13 hours apart.
Yeah, together, both incidents left more than 80 people killed or wounded, and these join a long list of tragedies rooted in gun violence. Here's some of the latest information for you tonight, starting in El Paso, where the death toll stands at 22 after the shooting on Saturday. The gunman opened fire at a Walmart in a city that's considered to be one of the safest in the U.S. But today, the mayor spoke out, calling the incident, quote, the evil, hateful act of a white supremacist. We're hearing now from the heroes who ran toward the gunfire and the victims who escaped.
I had to pretend I was dead, and he was right next to me. And he shot 8 more rounds, and all I could say is, God, please take care of my children.
So tragic. Tonight, the suspect is being held in the county jail on one count of capital murder. More charges are expected.
Somebody just shot a bunch of people, and somebody is in here bleeding from their head.
And in Dayton, police still have no motive tonight in the shooting that killed 9 people, including the gunman, Connor Bett's sister. Police say he wore a mask, combat clothes, and vests. They say he shot more than 41 rounds, but that was only a fraction of the 250 rounds investigators found in his car, along with another weapon. Dayton's police chief says that kind of firepower is problematic, and now thousands are begging lawmakers and leaders for change.
240 people supported that, including 8 Republicans, to expand background checks, close loopholes, and it's pending action. Simple vote. You don't like it, Mr. McConnell, you have the right of that. Why don't you put up the vote?
Back here in California, Governor Newsom and other state leaders addressed the mass shootings. He's calling on Senator Mitch McConnell to vote on a gun control measure already passed in the Democrat-led House. He also discussed the need for more resources to try and stop gun violence, domestic terrorism, and white supremacy. As for what California has already done, the state says the new ammunition background check law stopped more than 100 prohibited people from buying bullets in its first month alone. Gun owner groups have been trying to block this law, citing a violation of their Second Amendment rights. A federal judge is expected to decide later this month. Reports and politicians have pointed out similarities between how the El Paso shooter and President Trump referred to what we're seeing at the border with immigration, both using the word invasion. But today, President Trump condemned racism and white supremacy. He also pledged more federal resources to combat domestic terrorism.
Today, I'm also directing the Department of Justice to propose legislation ensuring that those who commit hate crimes and mass murders face the death penalty. These sinister ideologies must be defeated. Hate has no place in America.
Throughout the day, President Trump rattled off other mass shooting prevention methods. This includes restricting access to firearms for the mentally ill who pose a threat, also curbing, quote, the glorification of violence found in video games. While he didn't talk about background checks in his speech, he did tweet this morning that he could support them, however, to tie it into immigration reform.
And despite President Trump and other Republicans' claims violent video games are one explanation behind the violence, experts say there's little evidence that proves that. For example, a study published this year looked at more than 1,000 British adolescents. It found no link between the time spent playing violent video games and aggressive behavior. That is consistent with other recent research showing little, if any, link between violence and video games. And back here on the Central Coast, while video games may not necessarily play a factor in these tragedies, we did speak with a local behavioral health expert to discuss what could lead someone to commit these horrific acts. They say it has a lot to do with belief systems. KION's Drew Andre explains.
A family-friendly festival, a shopping center, and a popular nightlife area. This seemingly unimaginable attacks over the last week have affected the country to its core.
Anything could happen, you know, it's terrifying. I don't even feel safe in my own city anymore.
So what could cause a person to do something so horrendous?
We're isolated and we're polarized, and there's a lot of animosity and hate.
Dana Edgel is a licensed social worker, and she says there's misleading rhetoric going around.
Could mass shootings trigger an individual that has a mental health condition to commit a similar act? Really, the research doesn't support that.
And the American Psychiatric Association echoed a similar message in a statement saying only a small percentage of violent acts are committed by people diagnosed with mental illness.
People are re-traumatized, anxiety gets a little heightened, their functioning might be impacted, and then we tend to isolate. And when people are isolating, that can further exacerbate symptoms.
And in the wake of the Gilroy shooting, the Behavioral Health Department is holding several events this week to be a resource for people in this tough time.
Additionally, we were reaching out for parents and caregivers to make sure they have the tips and tools to recognize warning signs and know how to approach their children, but we're also realizing that young people themselves have been impacted.
And as a parent or guardian, approaching the topic with your kids could be tough.
Have conversations with youth, to not be afraid to talk about the subject, to be calm themselves. Be in tune with your child and see, are there changes in their behavior? Do they seem to be a little more anxious or nervous? Are they being a little bit more clingy, having a little bit more difficulty separating?
For KION News Channel 546, I'm Drew Andre.
And after the recent shooting, Venezuela issued a travel advisory for the United States. The foreign minister claimed that, quote, these violent acts have found echo and sustenance in the racial discriminatory discourse, actions and hate embedded against migrant populations. The Venezuelan government is urging its citizens to avoid at least 20 U.S. cities, among them Atlanta, Cleveland, Oakland, and Detroit. American Airlines is donating $150,000 to support Dayton and El Paso. CEO Doug Parker says $75,000 will go towards relief funds in each community to help make sure those affected have access to resources they desperately need.
Stocks of publicly traded gun companies rose today. The jump comes after calls for stricter gun laws following the deadly shootings. Investors think the prospect of stricter gun laws will lead people to rush out and buy more weapons and ammunition ahead of such regulations. And Walmart reportedly says it has no plans to stop selling guns or ammunition, even after the El Paso shooting that happened in one of its stores. In an interview published on Bloomberg, a Walmart spokesman says the retailer goes beyond federal law and background checks for weapons purchases. We're going to continue to follow these stories and bring you the very latest online and on our KION News app, so be sure to download it and have news alerts sent straight to your smartphone.
We are just over 1 week since the deadly shooting at the Gilroy Garlic Festival, and we still don't know the gunman's official motive. But we also want to know what this means for the future of the event. Organizers say it's still too early to comment as they're still grieving, but residents say they're hopeful.
They shouldn't live in fear. You know, I know that God wouldn't want that. He still wants them to enjoy their life.
The whole town is upset, but we need to keep this going, you know. We can't stop this. You know, it's a wonderful festival.
The city says leaders and the festival's board of directors will talk about possible security changes in the near future. And for those that were there that day, this week you will be able to retrieve items left behind on the festival grounds. If your car is at Christmas Hill Park, go to Antonio Del Bueno Elementary School at 9300 Wren Avenue between 9 in the morning and 6:30 p.m. You're going to want to bring a valid driver's license, a proof of registration, and your insurance. You will then be shuttled to that site. And starting tomorrow, anyone who left any personal items left behind will finally be able to get them back. This is going on at the Wheeler Community Center on West 6th Street in Gilroy. The hours are 11 in the morning to 7 at night. If you're a vendor, you must contact the Gilroy Garlic Festival Association. And then happening tomorrow, maybe more answers. The Gilroy Police Department and FBI say they will update the media in the morning. We will bring you any new details in the shooting investigation as we get them.
And now, Chief Meteorologist Dan Siaka with your Weather Authority forecast.
All right, let's get a first look at weather tonight. Satellite picture showing quite a bit of high cloud cover. So this is a special rainbow-esque infrared satellite picture where you see the yellows, oranges, and maybe some cases reds. These are colder cloud tops. And where you see the cooler colors in this case, that's warmer ground that you're seeing across the Central Valley. Notice all these high clouds streaming in from south to north across the region tonight, all part of a little bit of moisture that has been pulled in from the tropics. Now this is way up in the air. It acted as a blanket for us today and actually kept a lot of the heat from the sun from reaching the ground, so we didn't really get all that warm today. In fact, still a little bit cooler out there tonight despite the fact that we have clouds. But take a look at some of these high temperatures today. Parkfield was the hot spot at 100, but take a look at some of our other locations. Santa Cruz only 72, Salinas only 70, Watsonville, Monterey didn't get out of the 60s, and Carmel Highlands only 59 degrees today, so some very chilly weather right along the coast. I'll let you know what you can expect for the rest of the week and into next weekend in the full forecast coming up.
Dan, thank you. 4 California voters have sued to block a new state law. And that law is aimed at forcing the president to release his personal income tax returns. It requires presidential candidates to do that before they can appear on the state's primary ballot. Today, the conservative group Judicial Watch announced it had filed a lawsuit on Thursday to challenge that law. The lawsuit alleges that that law violates the First and 14th Amendments to the U.S. Constitution. A harsh response today from a woman who says she's an R. Kelly victim. Kelly's lawyers accuse her and others like her of having what they call groupie remorse. Lisette Martinez, along with her attorney Gloria Allred, say R. Kelly's lawyers are insensitive and are making a ridiculous attempt to save Kelly.
For Mr. Kelly's defense team to call victims, who were all mostly underage, remorseful groupies is the most desperate attempt to once again take responsibility off of a predator.
R. Kelly was arraigned in New York last Friday on numerous felony charges. He also faces felony charges filed against him by the U.S. Attorney in Illinois and the District Attorney of Cook County, Illinois. All right, animal advocates take aim at the Salinas Rodeo. What they say is happening in this video is illegal, and their demands for Governor Newsom.
Plus, devastating fires in our state wreaking havoc on your wallet. We'll reveal just how much Central Coast residents are paying more for fire insurance.
And parents, listen up. We've got a recall to warn you about concerning something that could be in your own backyard.